Alrighty, welcome back. Today, or in this video, I'd like to introduce a new build, and I am literally waiting for paint to dry. So I'm back on a project that I actually started several months ago while I was waiting for paint to dry. And it's not just this model. I got this on eBay a while ago, and with the thought of making it bigger, and I've done this before. You guys have seen a couple of videos I've done before where I made some Robotech models bigger by recading them and 3D printing them 3 times bigger. Well, this is 1/12 scale, so I decided to make it all 3 times bigger, which would make it 1/4 scale. And I could just very easily 3D print it like I did the others, but I don't want this to be just a 3D printed model. I want this to be a little bit more substantial than that. There's nothing wrong with 3D printing. I will be using some 3D printing for this, but I want this to be mostly other materials like aluminum, brass, maybe even some carbon fiber, with just a few 3D printed pieces as need be. So when I got this, it was used, it was already started. And whoever started it, they started assembling the rider here, and they started painting it a little bit. And I'm not going to be recreating this. I have another idea for the trooper, so I'll show that in another video. But let's take a look at the instructions and some of the parts I've already done. So I'm starting with step 1. Which is a good place to start, I think. And step 1 has these, it's a handful of pieces. And I went ahead and assembled that from the kit. And what I'm going to basically do is kind of do this in steps or stages or modules. Like this will be one module. So I was going to make this, and then this, and then this. So I went ahead, again, I started with this one. And this is the finished piece. So this is the kit, and this is it 3 times bigger. So this is mostly metal. From here to here is 3D printed. Again, from that point there to here is 3D printed. This back piece is aluminum. That front piece is aluminum. The inside bell here, that is actually steel. It is brass plated steel. And it was one of these. This was a ringer from a vintage style telephone that we had in our house probably 20 years ago, just because I guess we kind of thought it looked cool. But then it quit working, so we took it apart. And I had these 2 bells, and I'm like, that could come in handy someday. So I've been saving these, and I finally had a use for one of them, like 20 years later. That's the inside piece here. Now it's a little bit... It was a little bit tall, so I had to put that in a lathe and turn some off of it. And then the inside detail, those inside webs, those are 3D printed. I basically 3D printed that flat, heated it up, pressed it in, and bonded it in. And so far, I've only done 2 3D printed parts. The webs around here and this piece right here. Everything else is aluminum or steel. That's just an aluminum bar with a detail on it. Notice I put some screws like here. That actually holds that strap on. So those screws, that strap is actually functional. I do plan on adding a little or a few details here or there when it makes sense, where it makes sense. But again, just kind of a side-by-side comparison. The kit part and the part that's 3 times bigger, making this whole thing 1/4 scale. I don't intend on this video being like multi-stage, like how-to step-by-step. Because if I would have done that, I would have been like, I don't know, 5 videos deep so far just making this. I think for this, I just kind of want to show you along the way, like what I'm doing and some things how I'm doing it. And again, I've been saving and collecting parts and pieces for years. For those of you who don't know, I'm in the aircraft aviation industry. so I get a lot of unairworthy parts. And plus, my company, they've been upgrading power supply cabinets, and these are huge cabinets that are made out of aluminum plate, and they're just kind of up for grabs, like if you work there. And so I've got tons of aluminum parts, aluminum plates, angle, aluminum chunks, I mean, all kind of stuff. For example, this piece right here, part of a tube that delivered hot air for a wing leading edge anti-ice system on the aircraft that I used to work on. So it's kind of cool that, you know, some of these parts came from corporate jets. So again, there's that part. The next step, this one here, is just a couple of pieces. And that's what this looks like this. And this is my version, 3 times bigger. And this is all aluminum. This is probably made up of about 5 pieces of aluminum bar, aluminum tubing. This is just a solid chunk of aluminum, another solid chunk here, piece of tubing here, piece of tubing here, and a piece of tubing here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 pieces. So 5 pieces turned to shape on the lathe and just all bonded together. Now it's a little bit different from the kit part, because if you look at it this way, you'll notice that this is supposed to be kind of tapered like this. I didn't have a chunky enough piece of aluminum to do that. I don't mind it the way it is. Plus I've got a little flat detail here. That was part of the piece that I used, and here. I kind of like that. What I might do is just cover that with Bondo maybe, or JB Weld, and then turn that taper in it. I'm kind of undecided at this point. I don't mind it the way it is. Plus, this is tucked up under the bottom of the thing. Nobody's ever going to see that or notice it, really. So I'm not too concerned about it. But there's that one. Now, the next piece here, this is what I've been working on. So these two, I did those two several months ago. And so they've just been sitting, collecting dust, waiting for me to get back on the project. So I started a couple of days ago this piece here. And I assembled these pieces, most of them, not all of them, the 2 side pieces and the back piece. And I also put that front piece here in. So this is what I've got right here. And I've been looking at this thinking, how the heck am I going to do this? I do have some aluminum box structure, but it was too wide, so it wouldn't have worked. You'll notice it has some steps in it. So it has a step up here, then another step up, then it steps down, plus all these ribby looking things. The little details here I'm not too concerned about. The front plate's easy enough. Back plate should be easy enough. So I was really kind of wondering about this, and I was thinking, well, I could 3D print it. But again, I want it to be a lot more substantial than 3D printing. So I made something much more substantial than 3D printing. This is a massive chunk of multiple pieces of aluminum. These are not secured yet. I'll get back to these a little bit later. Those 3 are secured. I got 4 more to put on there. But this started off by cutting 2 pieces of aluminum angle and then securing an aluminum plate to that. This plate is about 3 millimeters thick. And to get the shape, and you can kind of see the lines for the individual plates. I have a plate full length. I've got another plate from here back, and then another plate kind of there in the middle. And that gives me that step up and then the step down. A couple of plates there in the bottom. And these pieces, what I did was I clamped them all together with JB Weld. I used CA to lock them in so they wouldn't slide around while the JB Weld was setting, because JB welded parts, if you don't have them locked in, they could slide. Even if they're clamped, they could slide a little bit. And I'm just using the squeeze clamps, like the spring clamps. And so JB Weld between all of the plates, all clamped together. Once the JB Weld set, I drilled a bunch of holes through here for screws and fiber lock nuts. See, there's 2 screws here, there's 2 here, and there's 2 more under here. And 1 here, and there's 1 under here. So 10 of those with fiber lock nuts. And then I started forming the ribby looking pieces, whatever you want to call those. And I went through a few different tries of this because I wasn't exactly sure how to do that. And the first thing I tried was bending copper pipe. And of course, when you first bend it, it's just going to crush. So I actually filled the copper pipe with that low melting alloy. I think sometimes it's called wood metal, or what is it also called? Bismuth? That doesn't sound right. But I filled it with that and bent it. And these, the bend was too broad, plus it cracked. I finally was able to get them to bend without cracking, and then I started cutting. And notice I bent it this way, so I could cut straight down, and that would give that nice curve here, and then cut down and over. But again, the bend was too broad here. This just was not looking out. It was looking like garbage. So I abandoned this idea. And then I went to aluminum tubing. So I took aluminum, not tubing, just this is solid rod. This is 1/2 inch aluminum rod. I ran it through the bandsaw to cut it in half lengthwise. So I'd end up with 2 pieces like this. Okay, so with the bandsaw, I got some angle pieces clamped on. And all I did was check to make sure it's parallel with the table and that the blade is evenly spaced and the piece will fit right in there. So then I would just take a little pusher stick and just feed that through the blade, and that would then cut my piece perfectly in half and perfectly even. Because without that, there's no way I'd be able to run that through and have it stay, you know, in the middle all the way through. And then I would clamp that in the milling machine and edge mill that flat to get it down to the right thickness. And then on the mill, I would have to, you know, I tried a few different ways to mill that side flat into the right thickness. It's kind of hard when the bottom is rounded, but I found if I clamped it like this, what I could do is I could come down, and I've got the cutter here set to the correct thickness away from that back wall. And so I just plunge down in, mill back and forth here, and then I could push that over to get the last little end. Then I could push the whole thing over here and then bring that to the other side and then mill off the other end. So it was a lot of stop and go and a lot of repositioning. Probably not the best way to do it, but it worked. And it actually worked pretty well. Not the best surface finish, because every time I would stop and go, you could see where that happened. But the overall thickness from one end to the other ended up being within a tenth of a millimeter, which for what this is was perfectly good enough. And then bend it. Now to bend this, you have to anneal it first. To anneal it, you mark it up with some Sharpie, heat it up with a torch until the Sharpie goes away. Now you know you're at the right temperature to anneal it. And I learned that on YouTube. And I know that because the first practice piece, as I was bending it, it got about that far and broke. After I annealed it, I was able to go all the way that way with no problems at all. Plus, you could almost bend it by hand after you anneal it. Before you anneal it, this stuff is super stiff. So got them all bent, and this is what they're looking like now. So bend them, cut them to shape, and this is all done with a file. Just filed the ends, filed it down that way. And you can kind of see the milled surface here from the milling machine. And so what I'm doing is I put it on. I've got all of these numbered because they went for a specific position. I put them on, I drill 2 holes, I take them off, open those holes up for clearance, and then I drill and tap those for a 632. And then once those are screwed on from the back side, I use 632 screws back here, I then drill and tap for a 632 bolt on the inside here and here to hold those down. So each one of these, and there's 7 of them by the way, each one of these has a 632 screw here and here and here. The screws are a little bit shorter than the material, so the ends of those holes will get filled in, probably with JB Weld. Same with those screw heads will get filled in. Any little gap will get filled in, and then all sanded smooth. And that's this. Obviously, it needs a few little details here and here. Those I'm not worried about. This corner needs to be rounded off quite a bit right here. Need to round that off a lot. But anyways, that is pretty much where I'm at right now. And I don't want this build series to be like dozens of videos every step. I want this whole build series to be like, I don't know, 4 or 5 videos. I'm basically showing you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. I'll come back to you later when I have a lot more done, and then maybe another video of assembling and painting the thing, and then maybe another video of the trooper that's going to ride on it. And then maybe one more just final shot video maybe. I don't know. But I'd like to get this thing done soon, because I got other things I want to work on. For those of you waiting on these other projects, don't worry, I'm getting back to them. The Jaguar, the Bimota Tessie, the Tesla coil, all this stuff I'm getting back to. So I want to get this thing done. And so I guess that's it for now. So until next time, just put those here so you can see them again. But until next time, as always, thanks for watching.